An Inca turn. The scoundrel abruptly takes up bird watching, and within a month, he spots the first Inca tern in all of North America.
I wouldn't have believed it had I not been there myself.
And you just know he's going to wring every last drop out of this discovery.
Oh, he'll wring everything out of it.
Lectures, books, guided tours, you name it, he will wring it.
He claims Josephine Dawson suddenly agreed to a bird-watching date.
Josephine Dawson with him.
Rose-breasted grosbeak.
Oh, a fine example, Plumley. I dare say I caught a glimpse of it a hair before you even.
Nonsense. I'm putting it in my life list. June 17th, 7:45 a.m. Rose-breasted grosbeak.
We can both put it in our life lists, my good man. Only I'll mark my sighting down for 7:44 a.m.
You are a devil. Oh, what is this fellow?
Oh, dear.
Well, this was no hunting accident.
This is Alistair Plumley and Guilford Harrison. The two were set to testify against Rex Gray next week.
These are the men who witnessed Mr. Gray shoot his business partner last month.
Well, two of the three witnesses. I dare say their timely deaths are no accident.
Sir, we've been unable to find anything. The gunman hasn't left so much as a footprint behind.
Right. Thank you, George. And apparently we don't have much to go on.
Once I get the bodies to the morgue, hopefully I can provide more specifics.
Sir, the Rex Gray case, doesn't that belong to Station 3?
Crown Prosecutor Daniels turned it over to me. Unfortunately, I've had no more luck than they did.
Well, we best do our darndest to keep the last witness safe, I suppose.
Well, that's precisely what I was thinking, George. And I can think of no one better suited for this important task than you.
Oh, thank you, sir. I'll do whatever I can to keep our prize witness safe over the weekend. Who is he exactly?
Roger Newsom? Of the Mimico Newsoms. George Crabtree. An entire weekend together. At last. I trust somebody will transport these for me.
Sir, I am begging you to assign another constable.
Surely you can set aside your history with Mr. Newsom for the weekend.
Too much history has accrued. While investigating his auto club, he ignored my pleas for help as I was being strangled. I was having the life throttled out of me, and he ran off in abject cowardice, not to mention the grief he caused while we were investigating his golf club and his puzzle club.
George, you have overcome far greater challenges during your time here.
Sir, I honestly don't believe that I have. I really think my hatred for Mr. Newsom is such that should the killer try to kill him, my subconscious could overtake my ability to prevent such an incident. I would be complicit in his murder against my will, sir. You would have to arrest me.
The concession I've made is this. Henry will assist you to help ease the burden.
Higgins, sir, you're taking me out of the pot and putting me in the fire. I might as well watch Newsom on my own.
Crown Prosecutor Daniels has authorized the three of you to stay at the Windsor House Hotel ahead of the trial. I will be nearby to make sure your subconscious doesn't get the best of you.
Sir.
The air was still damp with mist. My shaded spectacles shielding me from the morning sun. We had been out for an hour already and observed nothing more than a decrepit old blue jay with a crooked beak. I forged ahead toward the marsh, where ever so faintly I heard a cat-like meow. Harrison and Plumley missed it, as though it were meant for me alone. I raised my binoculars, and there she was, the Inca tern in all her glory, mustache and all. Well, must have been beautiful. I got as near as I could to take photographs. Photographs that prove I spotted the only known Inca tern in all of North America. I shall be renowned in ornithology circles, revered even. I only wish I had more time with the great beauty.
Yes, but you're interrupted by a murder.
Ugh, yes, that. Of all mornings for Rex Grey to act upon his murderous impulses.
I'm surprised you're so dismissive, Newsom. All the reasons why your fellow birdwatchers were killed, they're equally as applicable to you.
I suppose I am in danger, aren't I?
You'll be safe with us. Let's get to the hotel.
But if the constabulary had more evidence, you wouldn't require my testimony?
Well, we don't. We don't have so much as a murder weapon, so don't think you're going to weasel your way to testify.
What if I...
You liar! You bloody liar, you!
Hey, get back, sir! Shame on you, Mr. Newsom! Shame! Shame! Shame!
The shame is all yours for those dreadful trousers.
I'll get the better of you, Roger.
Off you go, little Stanley Faber.
What's that all about?
Ugh, nothing. Not even worth the breath. Did you see those trousers?
Dr. Ogden, Miss James, what have you?
Given the caliber of the bullets used, I believe these men were shot from some distance using a precision rifle.
45 caliber.
Indeed, Detective.
Both bullets were in almost the exact same spot in their chests, suggesting they were shot in quick succession.
The second victim hardly had time to move after the first one was shot.
Which is in line with my suspicion. Rex Grey has hired a trained killer to eliminate the witnesses.
Not up to my usual standards, to be sure, but I suppose I can endure.
It's not a vacation, Mr. Newsom.
Oh, please, call me Roger. Are we not well enough acquainted by now? George?
No, we aren't. And I don't think we ever will be.
You can call me Henry. I don't mind.
Why, thank you, Henry. I shall, Henry.
So, what are we going to do this evening?
We're going to ensure that Mr. Newsom doesn't come to any harm.
Yes, but what do we do while we do that?
Nothing, I suppose.
Nothing. Roger Newsom does not do nothing on a Friday evening.
If we are confined to this room, we might at least host a dinner party.
Absolutely not. Nobody's supposed to know where you are, Roger. That's the whole point.
You called me Roger.
Have you told anybody that you're here?
Well, I could hardly just disappear. Ruthie.
Roger!
May I present my sister, Ruth Newsom, of the esteemed...
Of the Mimico Newsoms.
Roger is so thrilled to be joining the constabulary, so I had to come and see what it was all about.
He hasn't joined the constabulary, Miss Newsom.
Ruth, this is Constable Crabtree, the bright, young, unmarried constable I was telling you about.
And what about this one?
Yes, that's Constable Higgins, but Constable Crabtree is my dear friend, a top chum.
Miss Newsom, you have to leave, and I implore that you not tell anybody your brother's location.
Hand me, you brute!
Ruth, Constable Crabtree is merely doing his job. I'm sure if I arrange for the two of you to socialize in a more casual setting, you will see what a fine gentleman he is.
Newsom, that's enough. Thank you.
Oh, heavens, Roger. No. You must promise me you'll get a haircut before your presentation this weekend. You really look a fright.
Yes, I know. I promise.
Goodbye, Constable Higgins.
Miss Newsom?
Miss Newsom. What presentation?
Well, I'm to present my Inca Turn findings to the ornithology community this weekend.
You're not to leave this room until the trial, Mr. Newsom.
But I've already booked the hall and sent invitations. All the top birders will be there.
All the top birders will have to wait.
I know what you're trying to do, Mr. Gray. You have a trained killer on the outside trying to eliminate all of the witnesses that agree to testify against you.
That's news to me.
I'm going to find this gunman, and when I do, I'll establish a link to you. And you'll be held responsible for not one murder, but 3.
And if you don't find him?
Is that an admission that you hired the gunman?
No, of course it isn't. But if you let me out of here, I'll ask around for you. Make your job a little easier. I know you've had trouble with my case, Detective.
You're never going to see the streets of Toronto again.
I have an idea.
What's that?
Let me borrow your uniform.
Why?
So I can go for a haircut. In disguise. The killer would never shoot a constable.
You'll not be giving a bird presentation, Newsom, so you needn't worry about your hair.
Well, I could no sooner go to court looking like this.
As soon as Rex Gray's in the penitentiary, you can have all the haircuts you want. Until then, nobody cares about you or your hair, just your testimony.
I'm hungry.
I suppose it is that time. I'll get our dinner.
Thank you, George.
Oi, Higgins. I'm off to get our supper.
All right.
All right, we'll make sure he doesn't leave.
All right.
Henry, I'm going for a haircut. Bye.
Henry?
Yes, Detective.
Where's George?
He went to get supper, sir.
And took Mr. Newsom with him?
Yes. No. Roger must have gone out for a haircut, sir.
He's left the building?
Sir, there he is. Henry, the balcony. The shooter. Sir. Mr. Newsom, get down. Mr. Newsom, get down. Get up. Get up.
Mr. Newsom, are you hit?
No, I'm all right. Thank heavens. I merely wanted a haircut.
Yes, well.
Ruth said my hair.
Oh.
I merely wanted a haircut before my presentation. Inca turn. Tell George I had a bird's eye view. Bird's eye view.
No, no, Mr. Newsom.
Bird's eye view?
That's right. He said, tell George I had a bird's eye view.
Sorry, I can't imagine what that means.
Well, he was dying. Perhaps it was simply a delusion.
Tell me we have something, Detective.
I am terribly sorry, Mr. Daniels, but the shooter got away without a trace.
Again. You're telling me he left nothing behind for us?
Sir, he is meticulous, a professional, if you will.
It's going to be difficult enough to prosecute Mr. Gray without the murder weapon. Now I don't have any witnesses either. Mr. Newsom was a pain in the neck, but I wish he'd survived.
What if he had?
Had what?
Survived. What if he was still alive?
What in heavens are you talking about? You just told me the man died in your arms.
But at this point, no one else knows that. What if we created the illusion that Mr. Newsom survived the shooting and was still determined to testify against Mr. Gray?
How does that help me? I can't put a corpse on the stand.
No, but if we present him all about town as if he is still alive, perhaps the killer will try to kill him again.
Exactly. If we can catch the killer in the process of trying to re-kill Mr. Newsom, then perhaps we can force him to testify against Mr. Gray.
You want to parade a dead man around town in hopes that his murderer tries to murder him again?
Yes.
Well, it's mad. But if you can get permission from his next of kin, give it a try.
George, perhaps you can get permission from his next of kin.
Oh, sir, might I suggest that request come from Henry Higgins? Newsom's sister took quite a liking to him.
Very well. Perhaps Henry will embrace the opportunity to redeem himself.
Let me begin by saying how very sorry I am for your loss, Miss Newsom.
I will miss him dearly, but I am glad he got to fulfill his desire to be a constable in his last days.
Yes. Actually, there is more he can do to help the constabulary.
How do you mean?
Well, Miss Newsom, with your permission, we would like to try to bring Roger back to life. resurrect him, if you will, so he may continue to help us with our case against Rex Gray. The plan would be to try to
Oh, thank heavens. Oh, yes, of course I permit. I most certainly permit.
Well, that was easy.
Get my beloved Roger back. You can revive him. When may I see him?
Wait, now, Miss Newsom,
My darling brother. Roger and I will grow old together after all.
Oh, hold on, Miss Newsom.
I can't thank you enough for this great gift, Henry Higgins. Gift of life.
Oh, I think you must have misunderstood what I'm trying to ask you, Miss Newsom. You see, Roger is indeed dead. We cannot literally bring him back to life.
No?
No, that's impossible. We would merely like to pretend he's alive in order to catch his killer.
Pretend? Oh.
So, may we have your permission to present Roger around town as if he were alive? It really is our best hope to catch his killer.
You're going to take Roger out in public?
Yes.
I have one condition.
I don't believe I've given anyone a haircut before. It's quite fun.
And I've never applied makeup to a corpse.
You could moonlight as a mortician, Miss James.
Between this and my studies, I'm doing more than enough moonlighting, I should think.
Ah, I can almost see the life returning to his cheeks, Miss James.
William, where do you get your haircut? I don't believe you've ever mentioned going to the barber.
Oh, it's nowhere special.
Surely the barber shop has a name.
I can't recall.
You, William Murdoch, the man who remembers everything, cannot recall where he has his hair cut?
No, I don't. I prefer to use my mind for more important things.
All right. I was just curious.
Well, I feel as though I'm being interrogated, Julia.
And I feel as if I'm being lied to.
Dr. Ogden, is that enough rouge?
Touch more, Miss James. Perhaps you cut your own hair, is that it?
No.
It is, isn't it?
No, it isn't. It would be tremendously difficult to get the back even.
Perhaps your hair simply doesn't grow. You've never been to the barber.
Mrs. Kitchen.
Mrs. Kitchen, the landlady.
I return to my boarding house every other Wednesday at lunch to have my hair cut.
Well, now that I'm an expert, perhaps you'll allow me next time.
Oh, no, thank you. Then I would be without an excuse to have her beef stew.
When the truth emerges.
There. This wheeled chair will allow Mr. Newsom some natural movements, such as waving his hands. I've opted for the royal wave. Now, the person pushing the wheelchair controls the movements very discreetly by adjusting these knobs.
And he's fresh from the barber. Now that rigor is past, he's ready for the town.
Unfortunately, Mr. Newsom lost the use of his legs after the shooting. We hope it's only temporary. And in the meantime, Detective Murdoch has outfitted him with a special wheeled chair.
And he's still willing to testify against Mr. Gray.
Yes, he's more determined now than ever, Miss Cherry.
How can you be sure that the man who shot Mr. Newsom is in fact working for Mr. Gray?
Well, we can't prove it yet, but the three witnesses set to testify against him being shot just prior to the trial, it's a difficult coincidence to overlook.
You mentioned that Mr. Newsom had been placed in seclusion at the Windsor House Hotel under your supervision. How did he come to be shot in the street?
Yes, that. Well, he had some very important matters to see to, vital to the preparation of the trial. It sadly couldn't be avoided.
Forgive me for asking, but does Mr. Newsom fault you or the constabulary for his current predicament?
He hasn't said so.
Well, keep me abreast, Constable.
Miss Cherry, will do.
Well done, George. Heck of a yarn you wove for her.
Yes, I suppose so.
What's the matter?
It's all big lies.
Yes, I know. It's great.
But the truth will come out eventually. What will she think of me then?
What does she think of you now?
I don't know.
Well, if it helps us catch two killers, is it not worth it? Gentlemen, say hello to Roger Newsom.
Hello. Oh, my goodness.
You can't make him talk, can you, sir?
No, Henry. As you can see, I have customized this wheeled chair so that its operator can manipulate Mr. Newsom's movements.
Sir, it's nothing short of remarkable. It's very inventive. But how exactly are we going to lure out Rex Gray's man?
Actually, I've given that considerable thought. As a result of the newspaper article, the gunman likely knows Mr. Newsom is staying at the Windsor house. And we know the gunman's modus operandi is to shoot his targets from a distance, like a sniper. We can use that to our advantage. We will roll Mr. Newsom all the way to the Windsor house, allowing everyone a good look at him to see that he is indeed alive. Once there, Dr. Ogden and I will set him up for dinner in our suite, conveniently seating him in front of the window, thus allowing the gunman a clean shot from the building next door. Can I help you with your hat?
Meanwhile, you two will have discreetly secured the building next door. When the gunman tries to make his escape, he should run right into your arms. Now don't forget, he is armed, so you must make a stop at the armory yourselves.
Well, let's hope it works.
Oh, I'm quite confident it will.
So you'll make a new plan, what we do?
But I like this plan, Julia. Perhaps the shooter realized that the building next door had been secured.
Or he realized Mr. Newsom was in fact already dead.
A sobering thought.
Barely touched your roast chicken, Mr. Newsom. Something the matter? Suppose I lacked an appetite, knowing I was going to be shot any moment.
That or he mistakenly thought you'd prepared it. Detective Murdoch. Yes, George, please come and collect Mr. Newsom and bring him to the morgue's cold storage for the night.
Jorgens, catch him! Oh, his hand went in my mouth. Come on, George. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. Higgins, try to move his feet. His feet like this.
Mr. Newsom, I waited till the detective would make some interesting dinner conversation. I'll never dine with him myself, you see.
Higgins, why are you talking to him?
George, we have to pretend that he's alive. I imagine the doctor would have been in her evening wear.
All right, Higgins, that's enough. Let's just get him in the chair.
Okay.
Mr. Newsom, are you okay? Higgins, go after the gunman!
Another .45 caliber, detective. Pierce his heart. Surely would have been fatal if you were not already dead, of course.
Thank you. Once again, this is all the gunman's left behind for us.
It would appear the ruse is out. The gunman must be convinced of Mr. Newsom's death by now.
Not necessarily. My bullet-resistant vest. Gun, please. Ears.
So if Mr. Newsom had been wearing this, last night's shooting would not have been fatal, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
So should Miss James and I revive him once again?
If you would, please.
How do we convince the killer that Newsom was wearing this?
Have your newspaper friend write another article about how Mr. Newsom survived yet again. Obviously, the shooter took notice of the first article. Right.
And here it is.
Goodness. The constabulary surely thought of everything.
It's an original invention of Detective Murdoch's, made out of metal and silk.
And now it saved Mr. Newsom's life.
That's right.
And even after this latest brush with death, you still believe he'll testify?
He insists.
I would surely like to interview him. A couple of quotes would spruce up my story.
That will not be possible. You see, Miss Cherry, the vest, while it did save the man's life, the sheer impact of it, the bullet broke one of his ribs, and speaking is very painful. Even his breathing is not noticeable.
Very well. Why are you bringing these stories to me, of all reporters? You wouldn't be finding excuses to see me more often, would you, Constable?
No, that's not the reason. I mean, I very much enjoy your company, but I'm under direct orders from Detective Murdoch.
Well, shoot, George. If we had thought to put this on Roger Newsom, he might still be alive.
Oh, Henry!
So he wasn't wearing this last night?
Who?
Constable Crabtree?
He was not.
So he's dead. And has been this entire time.
Yes, but wait, Miss Cherry? Miss Cherry, wait! Please, wait!
I unwittingly lied to my readers thanks to you.
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't want to do it.
Perhaps I'll write a story of how the constabulary deceived the public. How would you like that?
I would not like that. But I have a proposition. If you print the story of Mr. Newsom surviving again, then when the trial is over, I will give you and only you the whole true story. The story of how the constabulary brought a corpse back to life to catch a killer and bring Rex Gray to justice.
I've covered Mr. Gray before, and I know full well how evil he is. If this will help send him to the gallows, then I suppose I should do my part. But you do owe me, Constable Crabtree.
Miss Cherry.
We need to get Mr. Newsom out into the open, but in an enclosed space so that we can catch the killer. I wonder if we can create some sort of event for Mr. Newsom to attend.
Sir, we may not have to create one. Just prior to his death, Mr. Newsom was determined to follow through with this presentation he was to give tonight on the fancy bird that he discovered. Right. Why don't we let him?
Is it too late to get a mention of it in the latest newspaper article?
I shouldn't think so, sir. However, if the killer was too cautious to take a shot at the hotel, why would he tonight at the presentation?
Just as it may very well be our last chance to trap the gunman, it's also the gunman's last chance to kill Mr. Newsom.
Right. And Gray must be leaning on his man to finish the job with the trial right around the corner.
No, but how's Mr. Newsom going to present? He remains, after all, a corpse.
Perhaps I'll present for him, sir. I'll wheel the sitting duck out there and then explain to the audience that Newsom can't speak due to a broken rib. I'll be his voice.
Very good, George. Very good. I suppose you had better brush up on your ornithology before then.
Well, I rather look forward to it.
I do hope Mr. Newsom's hair is satisfactory after my little trim.
Yes, Julia, I've been meaning to speak to you about something.
What is it?
Well, if it means that much to you, the next time I need a haircut.
What about Mrs. Kitchen's beef stew?
Well,
I could request her recipe.
We really should be off.
On our date?
We are there to catch a killer. We must be mindful of our surroundings.
Well, we'll have to be lovebirds after work then.
Henry, I need you, along with the other constables, to station yourselves out here, ready to apprehend the gunman should he escape.
Yes, sir.
Now, I have sealed off the back, so you need only be mindful of the front and side entrances.
It's good thinking, sir.
It's an interesting bird, this Inca tern.
If he shoots, you will be able to hear it from outside. So ready yourself, along with the other constables, to apprehend the gunman. George?
Sir, I'm trying to perfect the Inca tern's unusual cat-like call.
All right. Let's position ourselves inside and get ready. Henry, don't let him escape.
The air was still, damp with mist. I'm sorry, the air was still damp with mist. Mr. Newsom had been out for more than an hour and seen nothing but a crooked-beaked blue jay. But something compelled him to push on. A calling, if you will. Excuse me. Nay, not a calling, something more powerful. And so Mr. Newsom bravely forged on. It was then he heard a faint cat-like meow coming from a tree. Meow. He approached the tree quietly and he saw this. The Inca tern, the first ever observed in North America, a momentous ornithological discovery calling into question all we thought we knew about migratory patterns.
Nonsense! Nonsense! What you are claiming, Mr. Newsom, is a lie. It's impossible.
Mr. Faber, how can you argue against this photograph? Clearly taken in Toronto.
I don't know, but it can't be real.
Well, I assure you, sir, it is.
I want to hear from Mr. Newsom himself, not his mouthpiece.
Sir, I caught him. I stopped him just like you said.
He's dead.
We needed him alive, Henry.
Sorry, sir.
same caliber as the bullets taken from the other two witnesses.
Leaving little doubt their killer was the same man.
And even less doubt that he's working for Rex Gray. Yet we can't establish a definitive link.
Sure, without witnesses to testify. Is he just going to walk free?
Unfortunately, I see no choice but to telephone Crown Prosecutor Daniels and tell him that the charade is over.
I solved the case! I solved the case!
To which case are you referring, Mr. Faber?
This is Roger's grand discovery. A dead Inca-turn. I told you he was lying.
Well, how can you be sure this is the bird that Mr. Newsom photographed?
Because I got it from his house.
Ruth Newsom gave you this?
No.
You broke in then?
No. I would never do such a thing. I found an open window.
So it's a stuffed bird. Why are you so intent on ruining the reputation of a dead man?
Because I knew that the Inca-turn couldn't possibly be in Toronto, yet everyone chose to believe Roger instead.
How can you be sure?
Because the Inca-turn is native to South America and restricted by the Humboldt Current. Making its way to Canada would be an impossibility. The fool! If he knew anything about birds, he would have at least chosen one that could conceivably make it here.
So you believe Mr. Newsom had the bird shipped from South America so he could discover it in Canada?
Yes. And it likely died en route. Making him a bird killer, too.
So he then stuffed the bird, placed it up a tree, and discovered it anyway?
Yes, exactly.
But for him to place the bird in the tree, he would have to climb it.
I had a bird's eye view. Bird's eye view.
Bird's eye view.
Sir?
Mr. Newsom's dying words. At first, I wasn't sure what he meant, but he may have been trying to tell us that he saw something more from atop the tree where he placed this bird.
Sir, he did at one point hint to me that he knew something more about the case. I thought he was trying to weasel his way out of testifying.
We have to find that tree.
How will we do that?
Bring along Mr. Newsom's photographs.
Yes, let's do that.
And you, Mr. Faber, will be staying here, being booked for breaking in and stealing Mr. Newsom's bird.
But I solved the case.
That bird.
So, Mr. Newsom saw the bird and photographed it early in the morning.
That's right, sir. The air was still damp with mist.
So, the sun would have been coming from that direction, which means that could be our tree.
Sir, I'm surprised Newsom would climb a tree in the first place. He seems so particular about his trousers.
What I don't understand is if Mr. Newsom did see something, why not simply tell us, instead of risking his life to testify?
Yes, but sir, this is a man who, at the Puzzle Club, had us all believing that he was a killer, just so we would also think he was the first one to solve the puzzle.
Prideful man, I suppose. Could this feather be from our bird?
Sir, that white tip? That's as unmistakable as the Inca turn's red beak and white mustache.
Yes. Yes, this is it, George. This is where Mr. Newsom planted his bird in the tree before leading his fellow bird watchers back here to witness him making his false discovery.
Having no idea they would be about to see Rex Gray murder his business partner in the distance.
At which time they immediately fled, leaving his precious bird behind.
Newsom perhaps retrieved it later that day, sir, when the police were gone.
And when he did, he would have had the same vantage point of the murder scene I do now. It would have been roughly the same time of day. George, I believe we may have what we need to convict Mr. Gray.
Without any witness testimony or evidence to speak of, I see no choice but to release Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Your Honor. I told you.
I am not happy about this.
Mr. Daniels, your office said we might find you here.
Detective Murdoch, did you come see off Mr. Gray now that he's about to be released?
It's quite the opposite, actually. The murder weapon, found near the scene of the crime, complete with Mr. Gray's finger marks on it, and the bullets match the one found in his partner.
Your Honor, I do believe we should proceed with the trial.
See you bright and early, Mr. Gray.
Why the bird? I was going to try to explain how he came to find the gun. This bird had a hand in it, but listen, it's perhaps too long a story now.
Then save it for the stand, Constable.
Do you want me to testify?
Why, yes.
And bring your bird.
You can thank Mr. Newsom for this, Mr. Gray.
That's Roger Newsom, of the Mimico Newsoms. Yeah. I've had my share of run-ins with Mr. Newsom over the recent years, and I have to say, only now in death have I grown to admire the man. For with his dying words, he helped the constabulary catch a killer. And so, now, I hope that Mr. Newsom is looking down on us with pride from his newly found bird's eye view. And now, for some closing remarks, I would like to call on Detective William Murdoch.
Go ahead, William.
I hardly knew the man.
You spent the whole weekend with him.
I recently had occasion to dine with Mr. Newsom. And I can say that his table manners were exemplary.
Bravo. Jason, bravo.
I truly am sorry we weren't able to bring Roger back for you, Miss Newsom.
Oh? Just how sorry are you, Henry?
Miss Cherry, I didn't even see you back here.
A good reporter knows how to go unnoticed.
I suppose I owe you a story.
I have the time if you have the inclination.
All right, then.
I told you this would be fun.
This is a hobby for people with entirely too much time on their hands. Not a city coroner or a police detective.
One must strike a balance between work and leisure, William.
It's a bit too leisurely.
Now, if only we could find a bird to watch.
Birds are everywhere. You see them walking to your grocer. I don't understand traveling all this way to see something that's all around.
Yes, but here we can observe them in their natural habitat.
But why? Birds behave the same here as they do in the city. They'll fly, they'll perch, they'll sing.
Surely you can appreciate the tranquility of the setting, at least.
Yes, well, it is quiet. And secluded.
Someone might see us. It's a North American goldfinch. Or is it merely a yellow warbler? Regardless, it's magnificent. Oh, what a thrill! Will you?
On the next shoot.